Picture this. You're lying in bed, scrolling through your phone at midnight, and you see another post about someone making money while they sleep. Passive income, the promised land. Meanwhile, you're over here trying to figure out how to pay off your credit card, how to cover next month's rent, how to stop living paycheck to paycheck. And you think to yourself, if I could just make an extra $100 a month without working more hours, everything would change. So you start looking into it. Affiliate marketing, print on demand, dividend stocks, YouTube, anything that could bring in money while you're at work, while you're sleeping, while you're just trying to live your life. And everyone makes it sound so simple. Just set it up once and watch the money roll in. But then reality hits, and you realize that making your first $100 passively might be the hardest $100 you've ever tried to earn. My name is Bryson. In this video, I'm going to show you why your first $100 in true passive income is exponentially harder than most people expect, and more importantly, why understanding this difference is the key to everything that comes after. This isn't about tactics or hacks or some 5-step system. This is about the psychology of money that nobody talks about, the invisible barrier between working for money and building systems that generate money. So if you've ever felt like you're doing everything right, but still can't seem to make money work for you instead of the other way around, stay with me, because what I'm about to share will completely change how you think about wealth. Let's start with something most people get wrong from the very beginning. When you work a regular job, you know exactly what you're signing up for. The exchange is simple and immediate. You show up, you work your hours, you get paid. It might not be enough. It might barely cover your bills, but at least you know the rules. You trade your time for money, and that money shows up in your account like clockwork. Your brain understands this equation because you've been living it your entire life. Work equals money. More hours equals more money. It's predictable. It's safe. It's the only way most people have ever known how to survive. So most people quit. They work for a month, see no results, and go back to what's familiar. Back to trading time for money. Back to the predictable paycheck. Back to the hamster wheel. Because at least the hamster wheel pays immediately. At least you know where you stand. At least you're not pouring effort into a black hole that gives you nothing back. And the people selling passive income courses don't talk about this part. They don't talk about the months of silence. They don't talk about the psychological warfare that happens when you're working 2 jobs, your regular one and this passive income thing, and only one of them is paying you. They just show you the end result, the success stories, the people who are now making thousands per month. But they don't show you the year of work that came before that first $100. Let me explain what's really happening here. When you work a regular job, you're trading time for money in the most direct way possible. You show up, you work, you get paid. Simple, linear, predictable. But passive income asks you to do something your brain has never been trained for. It asks you to work today for money that might show up in 6 months, or a year, or never. It asks you to believe in something you cannot see, cannot track, cannot prove, is working until suddenly, one day, it does. And when you're already in debt, already stressed about money, already wondering how you're going to make it through next month, that leap of faith feels impossible. Because here's the thing about being broke or in debt. It changes how you think about time. When you're struggling financially, you cannot afford to think long-term. You're in survival mode. You need money now, not in 6 months. You need to pay rent this week, not build something that might pay you next year. Your brain is wired to prioritize immediate threats. And when you don't have enough money to cover your basic needs, everything becomes an immediate threat. The idea of investing time into something that won't pay you for months sounds insane. It sounds like a luxury you can't afford. And in a way it is. This is the trap that most people in debt or living paycheck to paycheck fall into. They need passive income more than anyone. They need a way to break free from the time for money exchange. They need money that shows up even when they're too exhausted to work another hour. But they're also the least equipped to build it, because building passive income requires something they don't have: time without immediate financial pressure. It requires the ability to work for months without getting paid. It requires the mental space to think long-term when your brain is screaming at you to focus on surviving this week. And this is why your first $100 in passive income is so much harder than anyone admits. It's not just about learning a skill or following a system. It's about rewiring your entire relationship with work and money. It's about teaching your brain to tolerate delayed gratification on a level you've never experienced before. It's about working without reward, building without proof, investing without guarantee. And when you're already stressed about money, when every dollar matters, when you're already working as hard as you can just to stay afloat, that psychological challenge is enormous. Most people cannot handle the silence. They work for a month on a YouTube channel, and when they get 50 views and $0, they assume they're doing it wrong. So they pivot. They try affiliate marketing instead. They work for another month, make $2, and think, this is pointless. I could have made $200 working extra shifts. So they jump again. They try print on demand. They try drop shipping. They try freelancing, which isn't even really passive income, but at least it pays. And every time they jump, they reset the clock back to 0. They never stay in one place long enough for the compound effect to kick in, for the algorithm to recognize them, for the audience to find them, for for the system to start working. They mistake the silence for failure, when really, the silence is just construction. You can't hear a building being built from the outside, but that doesn't mean nothing is happening. The foundation is being poured. The framework is being erected. The systems are being put in place. But none of that is visible. None of that feels like progress. Especially when you're comparing it to your regular job, where progress is measured in hours worked and paychecks received. And here's the brutal truth that nobody wants to hear. Your first $100 in passive income will feel like the longest, hardest $100 you've ever earned. Not because it requires more skill than your job. Not because it's more physically demanding. But because it requires something most people don't have. The ability to keep going when there's no evidence that going is worth it. It requires faith in yourself when you have no proof that faith is justified. It requires patience when you're already impatient, because you need money yesterday, not 6 months from now. This is why most people never make it past their first attempt. They try to build passive income with an employee mindset, expecting immediate feedback, expecting linear growth, expecting their effort to translate directly into dollars. But passive income doesn't work that way. It works in silence. It compounds in the background. It builds momentum slowly, invisibly, frustratingly slowly. And then one day, seemingly out of nowhere, it clicks. The algorithm picks up your content. Someone buys your product. Your investments start generating real returns. And suddenly that $100 appears. Not because you worked harder that day. Not because you finally figured out the secret. But because the foundation you built months ago is finally bearing fruit. But here's what makes that first $100 so psychologically devastating. $100 is nothing when you're used to earning money by the hour. It's a dinner for two. It's less than a day's work at most jobs. So when you finally earn it, after months of work, after all that doubt and frustration and late nights, your brain doesn't celebrate. Your brain looks at that $100 and thinks, that's it? That's what I've been working for. I could have made that in a single shift. And in that moment, you face a choice that will determine your entire financial future. You can either see that $100 as proof that you wasted your time, or you can see it as proof that the system works. Most people choose the first option. They see the $100 as evidence that passive income is a scam, that it's not worth it, that they should just pick up more hours at their job and forget this whole thing. But the people who make it, they see something different. They see that $100 and realize it's not about the money. It's about what the money represents. It represents value they created once that paid them independently. It represents a system that works without their direct involvement. It represents proof that their time and their value are not the same thing. And once they see that, once they truly internalize that lesson, everything changes. Because that first $100 is the hardest. Not because it's the most work, but because it's the most doubt. It's the moment where you have to decide whether you believe in yourself more than you believe in immediate gratification. Whether you believe in the process more than you believe in the evidence. Whether you're willing to be uncomfortable long enough to become someone different. And most people aren't. Most people need the comfort of knowing their effort will be rewarded immediately. They need the safety of the direct exchange. Time for money. Work for pay. Show up and get paid. But passive income asks you to give up that safety. It asks you to work without reward, to build without proof, to invest without guarantee. And when you're already struggling financially, that ask feels impossible. It feels irresponsible. It feels like something only people with money can afford to do. But here's the truth. The people who escape the paycheck to paycheck cycle aren't the ones who work more hours at their job. They're the ones who figure out how to make money independent of their time. They're the ones who push through the silence, who tolerate the doubt, who keep building even when every logical part of their brain is screaming at them to stop. They're the ones who understand that the hard part isn't the work. The hard part is believing the work will matter before there's any evidence that it does. So if you're sitting there right now, living paycheck to paycheck, drowning in debt, wondering how you're ever going to break free, this is what you need to understand. Your first $100 in passive income will be harder than anything you've done before. Not because the work is harder, but because the psychology is harder. Because you're fighting against everything your brain has been trained to believe about how money works. You're teaching yourself to value long-term systems over short-term rewards. You're learning to tolerate uncertainty in a world that's already uncertain enough. And the question you have to ask yourself is this. Can you survive the silence? Can you work for months without seeing results and still believe you're on the right path? Can you tolerate the discomfort of investing time into something that might not pay you back for a year, all while still working a regular job, still paying your bills, still living your life? Because if you can push through that first $100 and everything it represents, then everything after that gets easier. Not easy, but easier. Because you've proven to yourself that this is real, that you can create value once and benefit from it repeatedly, that your time is not your only asset. And once you know that, once you've lived it, once you've felt that first $100 show up without you actively working for it, you're no longer the same person who started this journey. You're someone different. Someone who understands leverage. Someone who builds instead of just earns. Someone who's no longer trapped in the time for money exchange that keeps most people working until they're too old to enjoy what they've earned. You become free. Not because you have money, but because you have systems that generate money without consuming your entire life. So the real question isn't whether your first $100 in passive income is harder than working overtime for a month. The real question is whether you're willing to become the kind of person who can earn it. Because that transformation, that shift from employee to builder, that's the real challenge. The money is just proof that you made it to the other side.